What's up, family? Welcome back to my channel, The Mysterious Black Bandit. First off, I want to thank all you guys for watching and coming to support my channel. And going forth, I will start keeping these intros short and sweet. So if you don't mind, please make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and turn on all notification bells so you can receive everything I upload. Before we get started, I want to let y'all know I'll be changing up some of the words in this video to make sure I'm going with YouTube's guidelines. All right, now with that being said, let's jump into this thing. In today's video, we'll be talking about one of Chicago's most gruesome serial killers, Evandrey Crawford. Evandrey was born on March 20th, 1962 in Chicago, Illinois. There isn't much information on his parents, but it was said that his father left the family right after he was born, and his mother was a drug addict, so she wasn't too attentive of him or his sister. It was said that she would leave Evandrey and his sister unattended for hours and sometimes days, which left them to fend for themselves without food or anything. After a few run-ins with the law, the Department of Child Services started to monitor the family, but after a few months went by and no improvements had been made, it was determined that she wasn't capable of taking care of her kid. So they eventually took Evandrey and his sister away and placed them to live in a foster home to live with other neglected kids, and she was later prosecuted for inappropriate parenting. Now, you would think that this situation would have gotten better, especially with practically raising himself, but it didn't. As a matter of fact, it got worse. As Evandrey was growing up, he stated that his foster parents would beat on him and punish him for any little thing he did. Then on top of that, some of the other members of the foster family allegedly sexually abused him for years. Now, once he made it to his teen years, Evandrey had started to use drugs to try to cope with some of the current situations, but this only caused him to become addicted. As time went on, Evandrey decided that he wasn't going to deal with none of the abuse anymore, so he gathered whatever he could and ran away, hoping that if he could find his biological mother's relatives, he could live a way better life. But this turned out to be the complete opposite. Allegedly, once he started living with his relatives, one of the members of the family started sexually abusing him and even forced him into prostitution. By the mid-1970s, Evandrey was a full-on drug addict, which eventually caused him to drop out of school. Then in the early 1980s, he figured he would try to make something out of himself, so he enlisted in the Army and later in the Navy. But with the hold the drugs had on him, he wasn't able to perform his duties properly, which caused him to be regularly disciplined by his superiors, and ultimately, he was forced to leave the Navy with a dishonorable discharge. After this, Evandrey found his way back to Chicago, but with nowhere to live. So he sought refuge in abandoned buildings and homeless shelters. Over the next few years, he would look for steady work, but his drug addiction, on top of not having a permanent residence, caused him to go missing from work, which eventually led to him being fired from several jobs. So Evandrey just picked up low-skilled labor jobs whenever he could, just to make enough money to buy food, drugs, and alcohol. It was said that during the times he wasn't looking for work, he spent most of his time around urban areas where prostitutes, pimps, and drug dealers hung out, and they soon became close to him, allowing him to sleep on their floor and couch from time to time. According to some of the people that kind of knew Evandrey, they stated that he was the type of person who would offer to do small chores for cash, like shoveling snow, taking out trash, and he even helped deliver newspapers for the Chicago Times. Now, although he did work these little jobs, it still wasn't enough to feed his addiction. He started stealing and robbing people, which resulted in him being arrested several times for that and drug possession. This would be the start of a long line of criminal charges for Evandrey. In March of 1993, Evandrey was arrested for a felony theft charge, and then on May 3rd, 1995, he was arrested again, but this time it was a charge for sexual assault. He was initially found guilty and had to spend over a year in the Cook County Jail waiting for the investigation to end, but after the victim refused to cooperate, and in addition to her being known as a drug addict, her testimony was questioned. This led to his charges being dropped and he was released from jail, receiving a suspended sentence with probation. Between the years of 1993 and 1999, there were a lot of young black girls and women coming up missing in the Chicago area. In September 21st, 1993, a 37-year-old woman's body was found in a vacant factory lot on 700 block of West 50th Street, murdered by blunt force trauma to her head. Then on December 21st, 1994 and April 3rd, 1995, a 24-year-old and 36-year-old female bodies were discovered in an abandoned building on 800 block of West 50th Place and 5000 block of South Carpenter Street with similar causes of death. The police started to notice that all these deaths were met with similar fates. They were either strangled or beaten to death. In addition, all the bodies were found around the same Englewood area, and every female was in the line of prostitution. So they made sure they collected the DNA. When the investigators started suspecting that there was a serial killer on the loose, they started holding these community meetings with the residents to discuss the Southside killings. And even Evandrey attended these meetings, walking in clapping his hands. Now, over the next few years, no suspects have been found, and everything was back to the regular South Side Chicago. But on July 23rd, 1997, another body had been discovered. This time it was a 27-year-old girl whose body was stuffed inside a closet of an abandoned house not too far away from where the first body was found. And later on that year, 42-year-old Claudia Robinson was walking home from a Thanksgiving party when a man put a knife to her throat and dragged her into an abandoned building on the block of South Peoria. She stated that with the knife to her neck, he sexually assaulted her multiple times, then drug her to another building where he then strangled her with a telephone cord until she lost consciousness. When she woke up, he then started beating her over the head with a 2x4. Then she said that towards the end of the ordeal, she just laid there and played dead, and then he eventually left, but he took her shoes. Once she seen that he was gone, she called out to somebody to help her. And as she was laying there half naked, bloody, and seriously injured, a female onlooker approached her and asked her what happened. Once Claudia told her, female looked as if she didn't believe or care what she had to say. In fact, the female's only reason for coming over was to seize the opportunity to rob Claudia. So once she got everything she could off Claudia, she took off down the street. Eventually, someone found Claudia and took her to the hospital, where she was required to get over 50 stitches and had to stay in there for at least 3 months to recover. At that time, she didn't know exactly who had done that to her, so she just gave the investigators a black male description and they took DNA from her. Again, authorities started questioning the locals in the area, which eventually paid off, but since the accusations were from drug addicts, none of it was taken too seriously. Months had passed and there was still no clue as to who the killer could be, but as they kept searching the area, more and more bodies kept being found. On August 13, 1998, police found 2 more women in 2 separate abandoned buildings just miles apart. 32-year-old Nicole Thompson's decomposed body was found in the attic by a real estate agent. Then a 44-year-old female body was found in the kitchen of an abandoned house on 900 block of West 52nd Street. Both had been beaten and their faces were covered with no shoes to be found. Then over the course of the next few months, several more female bodies had been discovered in the same area with the same casualty. They were either beaten or strangled to death, and every victim was missing their shoes. Now, by this time, the body counts had started to grow some attention, in which caused the FBI to get involved. Police authorities and agents worked closely together, getting DNA swabs from men who agreed to give a sample, collecting over 500 DNA samples, but none of them were a match. Luckily, 2 women who lived around the area gave them Andrew Crawford's name as a tip, telling them that he was violent towards women and did drugs with sex workers in vacant buildings. After checking Andre's track record and seeing the time frames when he was in jail, they noticed that all the murders had stopped. They finally had their suspect. On January 28, 2000, Andre was apprehended and the court ordered him to give a DNA test. Once they got him in an interrogation room, Andre decided to confess to all his crimes. He spent 3 days confessing his crimes on camera. He recalled his first victim, Patricia, stating they came to an agreement to swap drugs for sex. But Patricia wanted the drugs before anything could go down. He said he got upset and struck her in the head and face with pliers, and then sexually assaulted her as she was dying. He told them he got most of his victims the same way. He lured them into an abandoned building to exchange drugs for sex, and if anything went wrong, he would sexually assault them, then kill them. Andre confessed to 7 of the 11 murders, also telling the interrogators that he was glad he was caught because he was like a shark in the pool. In 2009, his month-long trial began. Andre's lawyer's main objective was to have the juror focus on his childhood, saying the reason he was so hostile towards women who lived a high-risk lifestyle was because of his hatred for his mother. The lawyer stated that he had to deal with child neglect, sexual abuse, and on top of that, his mother was a prostitute who forced him to sell himself at a young age. Some of the people who lived around the area that knew him stated that they couldn't believe it when they found out Andre was the Southside Strangler because he was such a nice person, and he even volunteered for the Operation Safe Passage, where men escorted children through the dangerous neighborhoods to schools. Now, on the other hand, one person stated that Andre often voiced his hatred towards prostitutes. Andre used to say they shouldn't be out there, they should get a job and do something better with their lives. Then another person stated that he overheard Andre say, those type of females need to be strangled and have their head beaten in. By December 18, 2009, a verdict was finally reached, and Andrew Crawford was charged with 10 counts of first-degree murder, 11 counts of aggravated sexual assault, and 1 count of attempted murder, and was sentenced to life imprisonment, escaping the death penalty. While the judge was reading off the verdict, Andre had no reaction. One of the victim's brothers said he even saw Andre smirk a little. The victims' family members were all disappointed with the verdict, and the only surviving victim stated that she waited 12 years for justice, and this is what she gets. Andre Crawford, the Southside Strangler, was in prison in Illinois at the Menard Correctional Center. Just to let you know how sick he was, while he was serving his time, he drew several disturbing pictures, but the most famous one was drawn in October 2016. The picture was of a terrified woman with blood pouring from her face, in which he titled First Kill. Now, due to liver cancer, Andre passed away in March 2017, 2 days before his 55th birthday. And that picture was put on a website and was sold within 15 minutes. Alright family, that will bring this video to an end, and I must say, what a sick individual this guy was. Now, I wasn't able to give full details on everything he did to his victims because I don't want this video to be taken down, but if you look up his name and type in necrophilia, you will see exactly why I feel this way. Then what makes it even worse is that the police had records of him dated back to 1985. But during all those times he was arrested, they never required a DNA sample, which could have possibly saved 10 of those females' lives. Alright family, I'm going to end this right here. Thank you all so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please show your support by hitting that like and subscribe button. And make sure you turn on all those notifications. Y'all make sure you have a great and prosperous day. And until next time, stay mysterious, my friends.